From the studios in beautiful Oceanport, New Jersey, welcome to the biggest and greatest podcast ever. I'm your host, Ray K. Hey everybody, Ray K here. Another version of Catching Up with Ray K. I think this is number 8, so we're starting to get up there in almost a double digit. So I'm going to talk about my three subjects. I'm going to talk about books I've been reading and the importance of reading. I'm going to talk about an incident that occurred when I was much younger of a car crash that was almost fatal. Came out unscratched, but it was quite a life lesson. And then I'm going to talk about my top 10, my fun section, my third section, top 10 boxers of all time. And that includes heavyweights, lightweights, welterweights, middleweights, featherweights, all the weights. So first I'm going to touch on books. Books are important. It's summertime, and everyone loves a good book. Everyone loves, that's if you like reading, which you really should, because it's one of the ways to learn about the world is read a book. I mean, there's so many different subjects. There's so many genres. Everybody would be excited about something: drama, sports, comedy, cartoons. There's so much variety. Biographies, Abe Lincoln. You can read about almost anything. And I'm just going to tell you some of the books I'm reading right now, just to give you a flavor of, anyone that knows me knows I like reading. Because that's how I learn, and I get quite a bit of enjoyment out of it too. First one I'm reading a book called Everything is F blank CKED, which is tongue in cheek a little, because it's a little scary. And when you look at the world that goes around, and you could kind of lock yourself up in a bedroom and stay there, but because of the human power of hope, you can live a very great life. There's so many things out there to give you hope. Religion, of course, is a big thing. You need to have a reason to get up. There was a pretty interesting story in the beginning of this book. I'm about halfway done, so I'm still reading it, about how people would get lobotomies of people that were kind of over anxious, hyper, whatever you want to call it. They call them, troubled people back in the 30s. And some guy invented the lobotomy, where they would go right through your nose and go up into your frontal lobe of your brain and use an ice pick and actually shave some of your brain off. I know it sounds disgusting, but we always heard this thing about getting a lobotomy. And this guy that invented it won a Nobel Prize of medicine for this invention, which is pretty nutty considering what we learned afterwards. Basically, the lobotomy turned everyone into zombies, basically. I mean, it took away that emotion part of your brain. The brain's a fascinating thing. And then people they weren't hyper anymore. They calmed down quite a bit, of course, but they weren't themselves. They were basically zombies, and their personality was gone. But they didn't have all this hyper energy and so forth that they had previously. And it took about 20 years when everyone started realizing that this is crazy, getting this. I believe the Kennedys had their daughter have one of these things, and she became a zombie. I think she lived in a home the rest of her life, and they sort of shunned her a little bit. I think they paid for all her care, but she was sort of like, they didn't want to talk about it. And that was another tragedy of the lobotomy. And this went on up to like 1965. So 30 years went by, and they were still doing these lobotomies. And the reason why the book talks about it is it's important to have that feeling part of your brain. There's the thinking part, and there's the feeling part. The feeling part is extremely important. I mean, the only reason why you do things is because basically it feels good. It just feels right. So the feeling part dominates the brain. And as the book says, most of the atrocities of the world happen because people can basically justify anything. And since the feeling part of the brain is the dominant part, the thinking comes in there, and the thinking tells you, what's the right thing to do. But the feeling part is very conniving, and it kind of could justify things, to make it okay to do. whatever it is. And that's basically, whether you want to call it through Hitler, through any atrocity in the world, is there's a justification for it. No matter how intelligent the people are, this feeling part of the brain comes in. So it's kind of a dilemma that all human beings have, because any irrational decision is probably due to this feeling part of the brain. But you need the feeling to enjoy life. I mean, you need your thinking part, which is the guy. The book calls it the guy in the passenger seat. I mean, he's telling the driver, which is the feeling part, what to do. And how does the thinking part come over into the feeling part and help you make better decisions so you're not too emotional and make the wrong decision? Which is, if you could master that, it would be pretty amazing. I got a kick out of the title because I'm working with a guy, and he calls his website "We're All a Little Bit Crazy," that everybody in the world, has some kind of issues, because you're human. You go through stuff, and it's good to get it out. And the reason why some people have a lot of issues is because they keep it in. And this feeling part of your brain gets it out. So, what do? You have the thinking part, the rational part, and you have to overcome this unbelievable superpower feeling part. So I'm going to be back to you on this. I wish I had the answer on exactly how to equalize it so you become, well-rounded enough that this thinking part comes over into the feeling part to round out all the irrational decisions. But then again, the book talks about people in religious circles, even monks, and they try to knock out the feeling part, through meditation, and they go all thinking. And when you go all thinking, that's no good, because now you're sort of, you have no personality. You're just, you're sort of like a zombie, like that guy earlier I spoke about. So when you knock out all that feeling, there could be nothing to live for, because there's nothing to look forward to, because you're total thinking. And to live, you have to look forward to things, and you have to enjoy yourself. So that gets messed up on that end. And on the other end, when you're overall feeling that everything is, I want to drink, I want to have fun, I want to have sex all the time, I want to do drugs, I want to do this, I want to everything. When everything is feeling, then that, of course, gets really messed up. So both ends of the spectrum are very dangerous, and there are people that are on both ends of those kind of spectrums, so it's good to actually read to know about this stuff, because when you see things, you kind of understand them, and you learn about yourself a little bit, which is another great thing for reading. So I'm halfway through. I'm gonna get back to you on what the resolution is on this thing, because I'm kind of excited, and this is my feeling reading the book. I'm pumped up as I turn the pages, not because I'm thinking about it, but it's because I'm feeling excited, because I want to see what I'm going to learn. So the feeling part is huge, and never underestimate how important it is to have that in your life. I'm just going to read some of my book titles here. It's amazing when you read books, a lot of times you forget what you read. You remember it like the first week after, and it's good to read books back to back, which is hard to do because they take so long to read. It takes about 3 hours to read a real good book, and you think you know it all, but a lot of times you forget what was in the book, and maybe subconsciously in the back of your mind you kind of, maybe it comes out down the road. But I'm just going to read you these headlines, and I really don't remember some of these things I read before. Insight, that was an interesting book I read just recently, but you know what? I only read about half of it, and I just couldn't finish it. So there was something about the book that I just didn't enjoy. Daily guidepost I read every day, which is sort of a guidepost of sort of like a religious type thing that tells you, good things on how to live the day. So every day of the week has a guidepost, and like this one is for today. I will refresh the weary and satisfy the faint. Now, what does that mean? So this will tell you all about this. Then it ends with a pretty cool thing. When it feels like life has knocked me over, Lord, give me the strength to get right back up. hey, that's all you need to get through the day. I mean, so just one thing like that, you could kind of live for the day and just kind of remember that one saying. So anyone, my listeners, remember that saying. What we don't learn from, why we don't learn from history, that's an interesting one too, which again, I forgot most of the stuff I read about it, but history does repeat itself, and even the atrocities repeat themselves. Why can't we learn from it? So that's, that I would recommend, because I remember I enjoy reading it. Being Wrong, The Adventures in the Margin of Error. That's kind of deep. This one was interesting. 3 Felonies a Day, which was interesting. I'm interested in any type of legal things because I'm kind of fascinated by it, and that was interesting because it's just there's so many rules and regulations that people might commit I'll call it a crime and not even know about it. And this book kind of talks about how people could get caught up in that kind of thing. So it's just kind of interesting with the 600,000, rules out there that, it gives you a little heads up about how if things are too regulated, maybe that's not great. And then you need some regulation because, otherwise it'll be, like a zoo. As that first book I said, it's almost like a circus car. Life can get that way. Back on the feelings part, when you're overwhelmed with feelings, I mean, life, the wheels are starting to come off your car. So you need like that combination thing. So that was interesting. Let's see. Future Forward was a book. Glenn Rifkin, one of my Facebook friends I interviewed with, so he spoke about a guy named McGovern, who was someone you never heard of, but was like a major force in the computer world. So, I'm talking about that guy was quite interesting. Churchill, you gotta love books on Churchill. The Excellence Dividend. I don't even know what the heck that was. I got a Beatle book in here, The Love You Make. That was one of the early Beatles books after Lennon got killed. That was a pretty interesting read. Again, you never know what's 100% true, but you always pick up some interesting things. Advice for Future Corpses. How's that one? Advice for, about what it's like when people die and what happens to your body. So that was interesting. Let me get a couple more here. Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. I always like these motivation things. So The Soul of America, A Bigger Table. I'm just reading stuff off that I got here, and it's amazing. Red and Me was a good one by Bill Russell, The Importance of Friendship. And, what friendship really is and the respect that two people have that are friends. Principles by Ray Dalio. That's great, that book, by the way. There's like 100 principles that he abides by. And this guy is one of the great money managers of all time. So that one I definitely liked a lot. So books are good. I want everyone to, read a book because I want everyone to learn. I want everybody to be passionate, and I want everyone to be excited about their lives. And reading something you love is definitely something fantastic, But I'll let you know when I finish this one about the resolution about this feelings and thinking part of the brain. So, I mean, that's, hey, I can't wait to read it tonight. The next thing I want to talk about on my next section is my first car crash and what I learned from that. I was 17 years old and 5 days. I was 17 years and 5 days into my license. Excuse me. I got my license at 17 years and 10 days. I got my license, and I had a car crash 5 days after that. So here I am, the cool guy. I'm driving my car, and, I'm like the older one out of my little group. So I'm the guy with the car. Of course, it wasn't mine. It was my parents' car. But why not? I pretend it's mine. So I'm driving around, and, nighttime driving is different than daytime, especially when you never drove before. Everything, you don't see anything except for what's right in front of you. You lose a lot of perspective. So anyway, so we go out for a little joyride, I guess they used to call it back then. We get some gas, which at the time was like 32 cents a gallon. My friend gives me $1, so now we're able to, go out for a couple of hours. And we just, it's weird. You just drive around. I mean, you're 17. Like, what do you do? You're not a kid anymore. Now you're an adult, so it's like you're trying to, explore this world a little bit. So me and my friend, my childhood friend guy, that you grow up with, the guy you do everything with. So yeah, hey, I pick him up and it's like, hey, look at this. We're driving now. It's like you feel cool. Because, 1 minute you're playing on the playground and you're riding your bike, and the next minute you're in this car, So it's like your first foray into adulthood. And then we pick a third party up. This is when their seats went right across, right? So this girl comes in, this neighbor that we were friends with. She was like 15, right? Hey, you want to come? We're going to go for a ride. You know where we're going, I grew up in Jackson, which is like, they call it the Sticks, which is like huge. I mean, it's like its own country back there and a lot of woods and everything. So we just drive around. I don't even know what we're doing, So we get gas. And I remember I went left instead of right. And I always, even at the time, I'm like, man, I wish I went right, but I went left. So I go left, and we're going, it's 7:30 at night. It's late August. It's starting to get dark, when the first signs of, it gets a little chill in the air, that late summer, a little chill, but it's still like 71 degrees, but it's not hot. It's starting to get dark a little earlier, like 7:30. It's the sun's setting now instead of like 8:30. And you get the feeling that, summer's ending, which is okay because we had a good summer. And we're driving, and I don't know why, but the girl goes, do you mind if I drive the car? I'm like, and stupid me, because I'm the cool guy, sure you could drive the car. You're 15, you could do it, right? You never drove before in your life, but I'll let you drive my new car that's not even mine. Okay, so this isn't going to end good, right? So I stop the car, I get out. She gets in the driver's seat. I roll in the middle, and my other friend is hanging on the passenger side on the other side, right? So I don't know. I'm kind of watching to make sure she's doing okay. So she's driving the car and a little bit too like laid back looking. I remember that. I'm like, wait a minute, she's not. So the road goes into dirt road all of a sudden. Like we're driving, we don't even know where we are. I mean, there's trees on each side of us. The road goes into dirt road. Bumpy dirt road. We're going, I'm going to call it about 40 miles an hour. We're not going slow. I mean, it was, we were moving. All of a sudden, the car starts going back and forth, going from one side of the road to the other side, sort of like a loss of control feeling. Remember, my friend goes, Ray, you could just step on that brake. So I'm like looking at it. Yeah, I mean, that might be like, just picture being a passenger trying to step on someone's brake to get that kind of precision down. I mean, brake it's a subtle situation when you press on a brake. So I kind of knew that would be kind of weird to do that, right? And it's like we're not slowing down. And there's trees on the side. It's getting dark. Now it's into sand. It's almost like we're at the beach. I mean, the road is like sand. I didn't even know there were such roads like that, So now we're in sand, and it's like, that feeling of swishing around in sand that we've all had before. And now we're slowing down, and there's embankments on each side now, and the car's rolling right, and we start going up on embankment. And I believe the brakes were pressed then. So we do a little fishtail slide up this embankment. And then slowly, but surely, the car starts to go up and starts to flip back on its hood. Just like a 1/2 flip back on the hood. And I'll never forget what it felt like, because it was like, it happened so fast. And it's like, before you knew it, all you knew is 1 minute you were sitting driving the car, and the next minute you were sitting on the roof of the car. Both windows were open, no seatbelts. Back then you didn't wear seatbelts. And I guess some people probably did, but 98% didn't, I would bet. And I look, and there's the window, and I crawl out, and no harm, no scratch, no nothing. We do a full flip on the hood. My friend gets out the other side and comes around, and the girl's arm was out the window and got caught under the car as it flipped, left down, because she was driving, and it did a flip over, and as you can imagine, it crushed the arm. And it was a devastating sight, because I saw it, and I'm like, whoa. So here's me and my friend. We're both 17. He's about to turn 17. The girl's 15. We're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, if anyone that's been back in Jackson in those days knows that there's like nothing out there. There's a house about every mile. And here we are. The girl is bleeding. The arm is ripped to shreds. And my friend was smart. He goes, Ray, I'll stay with her. You 'cause I was a runner. Maybe that's why. You run and just run and get help. So I'm like, okay, So I run, and I just kept running and running. And, you have no idea where the next house is, but there must be something. I mean, for all I knew, it could have been 10 miles. Fortunately, there was a house like within a half mile, I'll call it. Back then, people spoke Russian back then. It was like this Rover Farms, they called it. It was like this. It was like a strange thing, because that's why Jackson felt like you were in another country, because you literally almost were. Because now no one speaks English out here. It was only about 9 miles from my house, but when you're that young, 9 miles is like 900 miles. And somehow I communicate what happened, and the police come, an ambulance comes, and takes her into the ambulance. We go in the ambulance too. I mean, I'm looking at the car. It was such a devastating, surreal sight, seeing this thing on its roof. And I remember thinking, well, if we just turn it around, it's probably okay. Yeah, duh, sure, Ray, but. That was my thinking at the time. Maybe that's that feeling thing that I just read about. It's like you're trying to justify anything. So anyway, we're dealing with this at age 17. The girl is really dealing with it at age 15. We go into the hospital, and her parents are there. They were real good, by the way. They were like, I thought everyone was going to be mad at me, and everyone really. They treated us real well, because maybe we saved her life. We could have did a panic, and I mean, you're bleeding. I mean, things are. I remember taking my shirt off and wrapping the arm around my shirt. You're not even thinking of this stuff. I must have walked into the hospital with no shirt on, but you don't think, you don't care, and the lesson. You really don't know when you go through these things. You always hear, maybe you have to go through these things. Maybe I might have been more reckless the next week and maybe had a real bad car accident. Maybe the girl that was injured, from what I heard, we lost touch throughout the years, but I heard she's doing extremely well in the medical health field. So maybe she would not have gotten into that field if it wasn't for this accident, Fast forward a couple months, she did have surgery. She did grafts, and she got her arm repaired. Never the same, because after that, I don't think it's quite ever the same, But I mean, she maintained her life and went out, and it was actually, I think it's one of those things that makes you stronger type of thing. I think she used that adage, and I think very well, because I believe she has done very, very, very well in life. So, at the time it looks bleak, but throughout the years, you just keep doing the right thing, you become stronger. And me and my friend are sort of bonded by that, because we're still in touch, not as much as we were when you're kids, but we talk about that every, I think it was like August 20. We always miss the day by a day. It's like the 23rd or 24th. We always, every year, we're like, yeah, remember that? And it's good to get it out, because we always talk about what was going on, and I learn a little more when he says something. Oh yeah, that's right, that happened. And then I'll tell him an insight that I remember what it was like the next day when we met up the block, and we were like scratching our heads like, did this really happen? That whole conversation. We were bonded pretty tight back then, and to go through that, along with all the other things, you got this little, bond, through that terrible type of thing. And we talk about it. So we get it out. I never spoke about it to the girl again, though, after that. We visited her in the hospital afterwards, but never ever since said, never talked about it. Maybe it is healthy to talk about it. Maybe one day we'll have a conversation, because it's something you never forget. You think when you're 17, when I hit about 22, I'll forget all this stuff. But nah, I mean, you're in your 50s, I'll be in my hundreds, and I'll still remember that like it was yesterday, because it's ingrained in your brain. So that was my accident at 17. I took some heat at school too. I went into my senior year in high school. Oh, who's driving? Oh, is Ray driving? Because the car got repaired. Got repaired in about 2 months it took, and people were a little bit scared to drive with me, and they would exaggerate it a little bit, like you could imagine what they would say. But I got through that too. So I mean, we all learn to move ahead, and that was quite a thing to go through when you're that young, But we came through in the clutch, and it all kind of worked out in the long run. All right, in my fun section, I don't want to get too heavy and deep on everyone, but it's my all-time top 10 boxing list. This is fun for me because I'm a big boxing fan, and I think I got a definitive list here because I don't know. I don't know if you could really argue this list, and it's in their primes too. It's not a full career, even though some of it might be, but it's these boxers in their primes are the top 10 I've seen or read about. Number one, Muhammad Ali, even Cassius Clay, before he took his little exile away from boxing. You know, it was 3 years he took off. But if you look at him in 66, 67, 65, right after he beat Sonny Liston even, the guy was amazing. I mean, the speed, the power. He was great when he came back, too, for from 71 to about 75. I mean, he was smarter. He was still quick. He still had that nice, that leaning punch, the jab. You know, he had the rope-a-dope later, but he was something in his prime. I mean, I don't think anyone really could beat him. I think Marciano even would have trouble because of Ali's speed, and he had some power too. I mean, he would knock guys out, and he was something else. But he's my number one. Number two, I got to go with Rocky Marciano because he was undefeated, and it was a very tough decision for me not to put Rocky one, but I really think if they matched up, Rocky was only 185 pounds, which back then was like a normal heavyweight. Ali about 212, about 212 in his prime. He had the height over Rocky. Rocky had the power. Ali was able to take a punch, you know. So I think he would have withstood whatever barrage Marciano came at him with. So I'm going with Muhammad Ali. And one, Marciano two, Joe Louis three. Anyone that's seen Joe Louis raves about him. They even put him number one a lot. Joe Louis was amazing. He was like an American hero, beating Max Schmeling. He was a big guy too for that time, 6'1". I think he was listed about 195, which back then was a good size. And Joe Louis had all the tools. He was like he's kind of like Ali, I guess. I mean, he had the speed, he had the power, he had the height, had the reach. So I'm going to go 3, Joe Louis. 4, Sugar Ray Robinson. In his prime, I think he was something else. He was amazing. He won like 250 matches. He had some crazy record. But back then, you lost a lot because I think you fought like every week back then. And plus, he fought into his 40s and maybe even 50s. So he fought a lot later on, so that brought the record down. But Sugar Ray Robinson is sort of a legendary guy. I got to go 4 with him. 5's a surprise because I've seen him fight, and I really loved this guy so much because I thought it was just the era he came was tough because he was like an in-between era, maybe at the end of that great era of the 70s. Larry Holmes. I'm going to go Larry Holmes, number 5. I thought he had that stiff jab. He had power. He was tough. He was a great underrated top 5. People might put him top 10, but I got him up pretty good. I got him 5. Number 6. I'm going to go tie between Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard in their primes. Duran was a monster. I mean, he was crazy good. He had the power. He had the speed too. He had that animalistic style. You know, the way he kind of looked out there. And Sugar Ray in his prime was. You watch him fight. He was incredible. I mean, you just didn't think he could ever lose. Duran beat him the first time. Leonard beat Duran the second time. You know, they had a third match years later out of their primes. But, I mean, I think they were dead even in both their primes. So that's 5. Excuse me, that's 6. 7, Thomas Hitman Hearns. He had the most brutal knockout punch I've ever seen, pound for pound. He was at welterweight. He just was incredible. I mean, he was almost unbeatable if he hit you with that punch. I don't know if anyone could really withstand a power punch in the same weight class as Thomas Hearns. I mean, he was great. Number 8, George Foreman. You know, George in his prime, he would knock everybody out. He knocked Frazier out 6 times. He would knock anybody out until Ali got into his head and beat him in Africa, in Zaire, I believe it was. So Foreman in his prime though was hard to beat. But I got him because he was a little bit erratic with his fighting style. But he had that like crazy power. He was 6'3", 240. He was like this big monster guy. So he was a fun guy to watch. Number 9. I'm going to go with Mike Tyson. and tie between him and Jack Dempsey. I got to put Jack in there because he was one of the first guys out of the Roaring '20s that was like a celebrity boxer to everyone. Any historian thought that Dempsey was way, way up there. But Tyson in his prime, he had that gladiator look, the black shorts, the no socks. I don't think he wore a robe out there. I think he just came out. And those 86, 87, 88, he was like knocking guys out in the first or second round, and they were looking dumb when he hit them. I mean, he knocked them out, and it was like I never seen punches like that before. Up until when Buster Douglas did him in, and that was the end of his little run. But before that, I think Tyson almost could really knock anyone out. But I got him 9. I put him 9 along with Jack Dempsey. Number 10 is a great guy I loved. I'd like to put him higher than 10, but I don't know why I can't. And he was you know what? It's funny because the name just escapes me now, but I just thought of it. Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler. He was tough. He was up there with Leonard. He was up there with Duran. He beat Duran, maybe out of Duran's prime a little, but he fought her. He fought everybody, and he was just seemed like a real good guy. And you always rooted for Marvin Hagler. From Marvin Hagler. I mean, he was. I'd love to know whatever happened to him because he seemed like he'd just be like a good announcer, but he would round out my top 10 in boxing. So that's my definitive list. Next week I'm going to think of another sports list. I don't know yet, but maybe I'll give you my top 10 basketball players because that would be a good one. And that everyone knows how passionate I am on basketball, particularly 70s, 80s basketball. So I'll give that next week. That's my roundup for this version of Catching Up with Ray K. Everybody, I want you to enjoy the week. It's great summertime out there, and we'll catch you next time.